4, 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow is deployed. Full course yellow is deployed.
Yes, and with the words of Eduardo Freitas ringing in our ears, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow in Pit Lane's Thursday night after show get together for all things motorsport. And of course, a huge weekend of motorsport locally happening this week with the Bathurst 1000. And of course, we've had the first day of action at Mount Panorama, and once again, the mountain has weaved its magic again. We've had lots of chaos already, including no appearance by Skippy yet, but we've had a brown snake, so there you go. So tick that one off your bingo card if you haven't had that one already. But coming up on the program tonight, we're going to, of course, talk all about Bathurst, but we're also going to talk about anything that you sort of want to talk about. We're also going to take a bit of a look back over the weekend that's just gone. You might have seen last night on In Pit Lane on Channel 31, we ran the news about the Australian Formula Ford Championship, which took place on the weekend at the round of the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championship. Well, I'm pleased to say the champion himself, the winner of the Australian Formula Ford Series, Eddie Beswick, is in fact with us tonight. In fact, let's say hello to everybody on the panel tonight. We've got Doc, we've got Richard, and as I said, we've also got Eddie Beswick. G'day guys, how are we?
Good,
fantastic, Brett. And yeah, to have the real McCoy here, absolute applause, trophies, should be champagne flowing, and then all that.
There's champagne flowing. It's just out of sight at the moment. Don't worry about that.
At least we've got someone on the panel who can drive.
Yeah, well, no, look, don't sell. I know you didn't have a good week out in the XL, Richard, the week before. So we'll talk about that. We might talk about that later because you weren't with us last week. Yeah, Richard, it wasn't a good week in the XL for Richard. No. But anyway,
welcome, Eddie. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us. So congratulations, first of all, Australian Formula Ford champion. I mean, when you look back at that, the history of the championship and all of those famous names that are on that honour roll, I mean, how do you feel?
Oh, yeah, it's awesome. Look, even the hard work paying off through the year, that was enough in itself. And then to see my name up there, Craig Lowndes, Jamie Whincup, Chaz Mostert, just to name a few, it is really cool and satisfying, to finally get it done after a year.
The interesting thing was, you, as we said in the news, we said, your task was really in the second race to finish seventh out of the national competitors in order to clinch the series, and you did exactly that. So how did you go into the weekend? I mean, especially in terms of the fact that Phillip Island can, a bit like Mount Panorama, it can bite you, and especially with the weather you had there on the weekend, it was Phillip Island at its best and or worst, depending on which way you look at it. So from your point of view, how did you, before you went into the weekend, how did you have it all planned?
Look, I did the maths, and a few people supporting me, we all did the maths and calculated what needed to be done. And I calculated 20 points needed to be scored. And looking through the year, I'd been scoring about 50 points at each round, 40 to 50. So I just had to do what I'd been doing all year. But this time I just, could have toned it back a bit more. And that was the only goal to achieve really that weekend, as well as the Victorian Championship. I just had to finish, and that's what I did.
We're going to usually by now we're usually in the skullduggery mode and scandalous and all sorts of mud being thrown across the internet. But Brett and I have already got into interview mode. So look, Eddie, for people that are tuning in right now, and we'll down the track on our YouTube channel, plus our Brett puts them out on podcast. Just tell us a little bit about how long you've been in Formula Ford. And a little bit about yourself in the past and the lead up to your career and where it all started from.
Yeah, well, I had a pretty late start. I was actually quite into planes when I was younger, and it wasn't until I was about 10 years old that cars started to, take over my passion. And it was 14 years old when I started racing go-karts. I never really took it too seriously, and when we sort of looked into it, COVID interrupted all of that. So never really had a proper crack at go-karting. And then when I was about 15 or 16, we were looking like, if I wanted to make something of this, I had to step into cars. And through the guidance of a lot of people, it was Formula Ford that I decided on. So started testing in 2022, and my first race was at Wakefield in May 2022. And since then, I've basically run as many Formula Ford races as I can, which includes the New South Wales, Victorian, and the National Series. And it's finally led to this point.
So how many races have you? Oh, sorry, Doc.
Is it your dad? When you say you crew you and you get around, is it just like a privateer type home crew, or you're expanding it to bigger, that sort of stuff you're doing right now then? And then
No, so we supposed to go with Justin Cotter's Synergy Motorsport, and yeah, my parents and grandparents were all into motorsport, but none of them were not mechanics or anything, so we had to go with a team, and that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, and Justin, of course, has a long history in motorsport and in Formula Ford in particular. He's been around for a long time. I mean, you said that you were looking at Formula Ford. Was that the only was that the obvious pathway, or did you look at some other options as well?
I did drive a Hyundai Excel, maybe a year before I drove a Formula Ford, like a lot of young drivers do, and it was
And
fun.
old
But
ones
I'm not gonna lie,
too.
yeah, I mean, stepping out of go-karting,
You're
XLs was
liberating, Brad.
definitely, yeah, that was definitely the first thing that brought to mind. But I'm good mates with the McLeods, Cammy McLeod's obviously racing this weekend, and yeah, like their guidance, that was massive. Like you have to be in Formula Ford, and that's basically ruled out 86s before I even considered it, and ruled out XLs because that's what was originally on my mind, and I just got set to it and worked on that.
are you grateful with the advice you got? Like, I mean, you've got to have open wheelers.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much that it's an open wheeler; it's just really the way that it drives and the car speed and what you learn. If it had a different body on it, it wouldn't have changed much. It's all about the driving. It being an open wheeler, it helps a lot in from a racecraft point of view. You have to learn how to be a bit cleaner around the other competitors. But yeah, it was just mainly the driving point of view. It wasn't really much of what sort of discipline it was in motorsport.
You mentioned Toyota. Sorry, you mentioned Toyota 86s. There is that the next logical step now. It seems to be the way that that a lot of people are going in terms of the pathway. It seems to be sort of like certainly if you can't afford the luxury of a Carrera Cup drive or something like that, you've got that option of jumping into the Toyotas. It's a very popular series. There's also the scholarship series. So is that the plan for next year?
No, we're shooting for the stars here. Next year, I'm going to be racing USF 2000 in America.
Oh, lovely.
Again with Justin Cotter. So
Call yourself,
set up
Mark.
a team over there, and yeah, that'll be pretty cool.
Yes, and there's a number of Australians over there. I've told the story before, but both as Doc and I have both worked the Australian Open tennis. And on the last day that I was working there, I was talking to a young guy who was also working at the tennis, and he said, "Oh, I just got back from America." And I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" He said, "Oh, you probably never heard of it." And I said, "Oh, heard of what?" And he said, "Oh, it's a thing called Formula Ford 2000 in America."
No.
So there's a few Aussies. There's a few Aussies over there, and Hunter McElrea has done very well out of it and is progressing through the. So is that something you're looking at now? Is that the new pathway? I mean, everybody, when we started in pit lane years ago, everybody who came out of Formula Ford, the first thing they said was, "Oh, I want to go to Formula One." But is that sort of an alternate pathway now of looking the American route?
Yeah, well, I guess that's just the luxury of doing Formula Ford properly. You become so developed as a driver in comparison to coming out of an 86 that you can really expand your pathways, and it opens up continuing on in open wheelers or hopping into a sedan or a GT sort of car. And looking at America, the career opportunity is so much greater than what's over here. And if you do well in open wheelers, you can fall back onto other things over there. So that's the main idea.
Well, look at Matt Campbell, for example. He'll never make Formula One, but he certainly made his way up the charts, as Brett said, on a different pathway into the World Endurance Championship. And I mean, obviously into the LMDH1s and all that sort of stuff, and become a Porsche factory driver GT and so forth. And yeah, he loves it, and I don't think he'd swap it for the world when I have a chat to him usually each year at Bathurst on the 12-hour. So yeah, you can always be open to everything, Eddie. So yeah, good stuff. And how long are you planning over being in America? You're just going to one season at a time and take it as it comes, or or you got a contract or a scholarship through there or something worked out?
Well, yeah, short term, obviously we're going to run next year, and if you win the championship, you win the scholarship money. I believe it's four $450 or something thousand US dollars to continue on into the Pro 2000 category. But yeah, the goal is to spend 3-4 years making my way through that pathway, their scholarship program, the Road to Indy. And look, if I can land an IndyCar seat, that'd be awesome. But if not, an IMSA seat would be just as cool.
Yeah.
We've got Mark Jones has joined us from way back in time, going back. We've turned the clocks back an hour, and Mark, welcome along. As you can see, Mark, we've got another guest on the program tonight in Eddie Beswick, the new Australian Formula Ford champion. Any questions you have for Eddie?
I'm still composing my head, having been on public transport up until 10 seconds ago.
So that's why it's the best day of the year, Mark, because you're saying today's the best day of the year. What's so special about Thursday?
Plural. See, that says D. DAYS. No. That's, I guess, the one of the beautiful things about the American ladder system is there's so much more teams that are astride multiple rungs of the ladder, for want of a better term, and there's. And Eddie, you talked about the pathways that open up, and that's certainly true of the American system. There's these. It seems a lot more centralized, for want of a better term, compared to Europe, which is, I guess, it's a bit more. I guess, like with 20 or so different countries in Europe, each pushing things in different ways. It's a bit different in the US, where there's just the one system to work through. So yeah,
I get. Be asking is, where are you based, Eddie?
I didn't know where I was going with that.
That's what I said. Where are you going to be based, Eddie? Where are you starting out?
Yeah, so it looks like I'm going to be based out of New York. That's where most of my connections are at the moment. But yeah, like Mike was saying, it is so good. It's very centralized. It's all domestic. It works so well. It's pretty much under the same governing body the whole way through this series. It does make it pretty straightforward, and the connections you make are valid all the way through that ladder. It's not like you need to change much up there. So, the whole thing, the scholarship, all this and that, it just makes it so appealing.
You've also got the language advantage as well, because I know from a lot of young Australians that we've spoken to over the years who have gone over to Europe, some of them who have not been based in England, who have gone over to France or Spain or one of those countries, or Italy, they have found that to be a bit of a struggle, certainly for the first year or two, to get over there and suddenly find themselves in a completely foreign country, completely foreign language, having to deal through interpreters, with talking to your team and all the rest of it, and you're at least roughly talking the same sort of language.
Don't forget, Eddie, to get your trick bag ready. So have a lot of Aussie slang, because they love a bit of that. Have a few jokes as well, though, too. They don't understand.
Not in New York. Not in New York. They're a lot smarter than that. I remember my cousin went to New York, went all over America, and got lots of free drinks by doing the Crocodile Dundee thing. And he walked into a bar in New York, and the bartender just looked at him and went, "This is New York, pal. That shit don't cut no ice here."
But one thing, obviously, other than Italy, make sure you can make a good brew, make a good coffee, because Melbourne is renowned for one of the coffee capitals of the world.
Actually, if you are in New York and you're feeling like a really good coffee, go to Collins Street. Not Collins Street, Melbourne, but there is a coffee shop in New York from a Melbourne guy called Collins Street in honour of some of the best coffee in the world. So, and everyone says if you go there, get a coffee.
Keep brewing you ready. When do you, just briefly, when do you fly over? When do you kick off the jaunt?
Currently the car's being delivered from Italy, so Justin, my team boss, is probably going to go over there and build the car sometime in the next month or two, but it's likely going to be around January that we'll start testing. So I think about January.
Are you mechanically minded? Are you just a straight out, clean, down the lines driver, or like getting your hands on the tools sometimes? So just to keep your hand in the thing, because sometimes a little bit of work on the car helps you explain to your engineer how you want the car adjusted. Whether you're getting to some oversteer, understeer, or you know what I mean. It's extra camber. Yeah. So do you get on the tools much?
No, look, I don't get on the tools, but again, that's one of the great things with Formula Ford. I've learned how to set up a car really well, coming off the weekend, and really the whole year I've been able to put that car right where I want it to be. And that's just another thing of Formula Ford. It's simple. The adjustments make a difference. You can feel the difference, and it pays off the hard work and knowing what to do.
Good stuff.
I think we've got some people who might even know you, but they're asking a few questions. We've got Jackson Barry is asking now, do you do any sim work in order to, with iRacing or something similar, to prepare? I imagine you do, because most young people do now, don't you?
Yeah, hi Jackson. I do sim racing. It's a great way to stay sharp and learn racecraft against many different people of all different abilities. It's great to get a full rounded understanding of the people you're racing against. And when I'm racing kids and other young adults, it does translate to real life.
Just checking, this is not a setup. You don't know Jackson. He beats you usually, does he?
No, I haven't seen any Jackson Barrys.
That's all right. That's all right. No, he might. just in case someone might be trying to set you up. It does happen sometimes.
Yeah.
It certainly. Well, I mean, here's one for you. You don't have to answer this, Eddie, but I'm going to throw it up anyway because someone's asking. What are your predictions for the American election? Don't answer.
Well, I must have got your email, Eddie, because I got one of the American that used to race in the superbikes as well, sitting behind me tonight. So just a complete coincidence, but I got the American colours right back there. So yeah, make sure you check out some of the bikes over there as well. Too. You like the two wheels, or you just stick to the four?
Oh, look, I'm no good on two wheels, but it's the best racing you can watch. So for sure, I'll be over there if there's a MotoGP race nearby at Coda or something. I'll be sure to be down there.
Good on you, mate. Very good.
Oh, and based out of New York, you'll have Watkins Glen just up the road. I'm so jealous of the idea of popping up to the Glen for. Oh,
we're going to extend this. Eddie, how many races next year? So how many planned?
I believe it's 8 weekends. All of them are 2 races, besides 2 that are 3 races, I believe. I think it's somewhere around 20-something races. But yeah, 8 weekends, I believe.
Is it a slightly different setup to this? How many rounds did you have in Australia? 5 or 6 or something?
7 rounds of 3 races.
Yep.
Yeah, obviously I'll be racing one oval race over there, so that'll be pretty interesting. But they count each race as a round. I believe there's a qualifying session for each race, unlike Formula Ford, and how the progressive grids work through the race. So a bit of a format change, but it's not really going to change much on how to drive.
Shouldn't be too big a deal because a lot of people swap over countries and race them almost immediately within a few hours. But you obviously got a big time difference between Australia and America. So you land in January sometime. When's your first race, Eddie?
The first weekend of March in St. Petersburg.
Plenty of time.
Yeah, I was going to say, on the streets of St. Petersburg.
It all happens in Florida.
Yeah. Well, that's if there's any. Yeah, look, that's if there's any streets of St. Petersburg left after the terrible situation that's happening there at the moment. I haven't heard from anybody regarding sort of the facilities there. Places like Daytona, but they've all been hit really, really hard.
On the news, it said it's gone out to sea tonight. So whatever damage it's been done already. So.
Yeah, so hopefully it will stay out there and die away. I was watching some live footage from Fort Lauderdale last night, and it was pretty wild stuff going through. Speaking of wild stuff, let's start talking about the place where lots of wild stuff is happening, including brown snakes, and that's Mount Panorama. Who's been watching Bathurst today?
Oh, you can see my lower third there. Sprint Cup, Enduro Cup, and Demolition Derby for 4 races at the end of the season next year.
Yeah.
There's only what are the other 6 going to do if you're going to be running around on a circuit when there's only 4 going for the championship? Is there going to be any allegiances or court battles going to ensue?
Well, we might get onto that later, because that's certainly next year. Let's talk about what happened today out at Mount Panorama, because it was pretty chaotic. With people sort of going into walls and all that, but having
missing walls.
A couple of bent cars after today's action, but Scott Pye has bent the championship leading car on the run up to the cutting. Didn't run over the snake to do it, but the snake was a spectator at the time, apparently.
Somehow found a way to whip the wheel out too, Mark.
Someone mentioned snake oil, slid on it, but
well, that was the Heritage Series that apparently a Alan Moffat RX-7 decided to explode under the bonnet, and spectacularly, apparently, I didn't see it, and it was the oil all the way down Conrod Strait, and it spun on itself, apparently, too, was the word on the street.
That was the first delay.
Apparently what caused the explosion was that extra bit of tape that they had to put on the car to cover up the tobacco sponsorship caused that failure. We also saw Cody Bircher apparently bent one of the DS Super 3 Nissan Altimas. So hopefully that car's easy to fix. There's not that I don't think we got any advance on the usual three cars in Super 3 for this weekend. So they can ill afford to lose one of their cars in the first session.
Sorry, Mark. One of the Super 2s.
The Super 3s.
Kelly and Super 2.
Oh yes, Mason Kelly, I believe.
He's out for the weekend.
Yes, Mason Kelly.
So he's out for the week.
Under the tree
as well.
Eddie,
did you have a look at any of it today?
I tried to watch as much as I could, but a few bent cars, so not too good there.
Bathurst still bites. No surprise
So being that you're up in New South Wales, you far away from Bathurst, you're heading out there for the weekend at all, or are you just going to be like the rest of us and watch it on the telly?
Oh, look, it's a 3-hour drive, but I don't know. Watching it on TV is pretty good. So I was planning on watching it here, but unless I get a call up, so I think I'll be sitting here.
Yeah. You never know. Silly things have happened. Happened.
Well, Warren Luff was, as I was saying to Brett before we started the show tonight, before he joined us, that Mark alluded to that. I don't know how. It was one of those freaky ones where he's just going down. There's concrete everywhere, and he thought he must have been at Movie World doing his stunt driver training program and tracked it. There we go. So Brett's bringing up some stats while I'm going through it. So, Luffy's come through, I think, what was it, cutting or somewhere along there. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And how he spun at a complete 360 and not touched anything, and then threw it in the first and took off like he normally does when he's on two wheels or one wheel up at Gold Coast.
So as we can see on the result of what's happened today is Matt Payne has set the fastest time in the first practice session. Most of the lead drivers were in the first practice session ahead of Cam Waters. Behind him, Will Brown was third fastest, and then we saw really good performance by Cam Hill and Cameron Crick. Fabulous performance out of fourth position. And then, of course, you got Jamie Whincup set that fast time, so he was the quickest of the co-drivers, setting that in practice 2 with a 2:07.47. So we're in the 2:07s at the moment. So there's still plenty to go, Pete.
And that was only in the dying minutes. Apart from that, Jada was actually fast for a lot of that session.
He was quick. And two other things, Garth turned in an installation lap through the kitty litter. So he had an off, and he's just checking out things in the dirt like he does with his GT3 stuff when he's running around the 12-hour. And I've got some footage there one year, a couple of years ago. He very, very lucky to miss the wall. And the other one that I did notice that Mr. Trady himself was very lucky as well too. Did he clip a wall, or did he just go through there and I think he stepped out.
He skimmed it, but he didn't clip it. And he was actually in the first practice session. He was doing quite well as well. David Reynolds in the first practice session, he was setting fastest times as well.
Dave's always been really good around Mount Panorama. It's obviously a track he's very comfortable at. He's had a lot of experience.
And he's won, So very, very good. Anyway,
I like Jared's comment. Scott Pye mixed over. Yes, because of course Scott and our mate Elliot Barber. They've got their podcast Apex Hunter, and he was hunting and he lost the Apex somewhere today. So hopefully, I imagine that they will get that. That fixed.
two grabs I've taken away from that, and quote from him, and he's also his fellow teammate in the other car, who happens to also be the boss. So Jamie Wincup says, "Has some ice cream, forget about it. Make sure you don't, your memory is not too good, because you don't want to remember it for the rest of the week, and just forget it and move on and have some ice cream." And the other one was, I think Scott said himself that, I just went in way too hot. So he admitted it, but he said, "I don't know what I was doing while I was going in that fast." So at least you recognise your fault. But look, he's done enough laps in the Camaro around that himself as well too. So he'll rein it in, and that's basically about it. We all know by the time you get to Sunday, that's the old cliche. You've got to finish the race to get a place in the first to finish. So they all have to clean up all their T's and I's.
Speaking of supercars, Eddie, one of you, and a second, just wanted with Eddie. One of your prizes, of course, is a supercars test drive with Dick Johnson Racing. Do you know when that's happening and where?
No. Well, it was cool enough, nice of them to give us a garage tour at the Tasmanian round that we raced at. And one of the issues they had is they sold their spare car to America, and that's the car that the winner would drive. So I either have to wait for them to build a new car or just see when it aligns with them. And that was the main thing. So, I mean,
that'd be a bit rough, wouldn't it?
But, yeah.
Well, you're in America. You could borrow it when you were there for as long as you really want to, and just say, "Look, it's mine. You've sent it here for me. I'll take it. Thank you very much." Or on the second hand, they always usually have most teams have a car in the pipeline at some stage, a plan. So you never know. One of the two cars that obviously Anton races this year, or maybe even will, could be on the way out by the end of the year. That will become the new test car or mule or something like that. You might get that, and there'll be the new car goes to the driver for next year.
You don't know who happened to buy the car, do you, Eddie?
No, I'm not sure who bought the car.
Because I'm just wondering. I just had a thought there. I'm wondering if his name starts with Scott and ends with McLaughlin. He's got the money now. Scotty, if you're out there, let us know. Let us know.
And Eddie's going to give you a text or a call next week and arrange something.
I mean, is that part of we talk about sort of drivers doing well? You mentioned running on an oval for the first time. It must be an inspiration to you to see how Scott's done. I mean, when I spoke to him last time here in Australia. It was like, I've got no experience on an oval at all, and we'll see how that goes. And now he's one of the quickest, consistently fastest oval track drivers on the IndyCar circuit at the moment. So that must give you a bit of a push for the. Do you know Scott at all? Do you reckon you can catch up with him and get a few tips?
Oh, look, it'd be pretty cool too. I actually have met Will Power a couple of times when I've been over there, so. I got Will behind me, I guess, to an extent, but yeah, back
not a bad alternative too.
Yeah, that's right. So it just shows how much hard work Scott's put in and just how talented he is to adapt from a supercar to being a championship contender in an IndyCar.
Yeah, Roger was very lucky, right place at the right time, but he obviously worked very hard for it in Australia to be able to just not go across there and start from the bottom in any particular area. He went across there and got his test and proved it immediately and got the gig thanks to Penske Racing over there. So he bypassed it all, didn't he, along the way?
He clearly, Roger clearly, we know he's obviously, Roger's been around for years, and he obviously saw something special in Scott, because there was no hesitation in sort of taking him across. It was like he committed to him fairly early. It wasn't like, we'll give you a test, we'll see how you go, and we might bring you in for one or two. And it was, no, you're leaving here, you're coming with me, you're coming back to America, my friend. That would be interesting. Jared's saying, Will Power keen on supercars. He drove very well when he drove on the Gold Coast. He drove very well in supercars. So there'll be no room left for young talent like Eddie if we've got sort of, with Will and Dan Ricciardo and Valtteri Bottas and all, every man and his dog wants to run apparently wants to run a supercar now. Keanu Reeves, he's just around the corner.
Yeah, he had a 15-year hiatus. He parked any his thoughts for 15 years. He's jumped back in and had a spin already just to get the cobwebs out. But yeah, Brett asked me to hold back on the other night for the show, and Valtteri has gone on record again this week. Everyone's always chasing because he's basically is just as more Aussie than Daniel at the moment at times, and Daniel's usually pretty out there. But because he's got the bloody good half. But she's a South Australian triathlete. She's awesome over here. So Valtteri's back here every minute he gets, and he said all depends on what my future plans are. If the calendar suits, the exact words, but I have no doubt I will be in a supercar down the track as long as it suits the calendar. So. But the Ricardo thing is it's a little bit exaggerated. I think Valtteri's got more chance of coming in and fulfilling his words than what Daniel is. Daniel's a long way off, I think, really.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where Daniel does go. I'm not sure. I think he's going to be one of those. And as I said last week, I think he should take a good long break. He doesn't need to jump into anything now. He should just settle down, decide if he still wants to race, and if so, where does he want to race? Because he could come back here. I mean, that's all well and good, but I mean, basically he's home. He's very big, very popular in America. He's as we said last week, the boss of COTA for the US Grand Prix have said we want Daniel Ricciardo here, whether he's racing or not. We want him here because that boy sells tickets.
Mark Webber, if he doesn't see him at the track in the very immediate future, you'd have to have him on speed dial. So, like you said, if he wants to sit back in the what do you call it, the physiotherapist chair with a massage and the psychologist. Mark, have a chat with Mark and see what you think, because Mark's probably got some good advice for him as well, though, too, on what he did in the withdrawals he had after Formula One and what he wanted to do and what you want to drive, and he could nut some stuff out with Mark.
That's it. Okay, well, let's talk about. We had a look at the first day of practice today. We probably haven't learned too much because they were just out, sort of, knocking the dust off. So far, Will Davison. Speaking of Shell V-Power Racing, Will Davison and Kai Allen had a few mechanical problems as well. But so far, so good for the Mustangs with their new GT3 crankshafts. So that was good to know. And we'll see how that goes for tomorrow, and obviously in the race. I mean, the race will be the test of the tape.
Although in the second practice session, the 25 car, Chaz Mostert's car, was in the pits for most of it with what they say is a hydraulic issue. But I wonder.
It might be an isolated incident, that one, if it's hydraulics then, to a certain extent. I think Will's had a bit of bad luck throughout the whole of this year. Some of it you make yourself on the track, and inconsistency and stuff like that sometimes. But he just probably a tiny little bit more of the gremlins this year than some of the other cars out there.
Well, that's why so many people were, a lot of people were so surprised that it was Anton De Pasquale that's left the team. A lot of people thought that that Will was ready to go elsewhere and would probably be replaced by Kai Allen or somebody. And as it turned out, that's obviously not what's happening. I mean, now it's De Pasquale out and Kostecki in. So I think that's interesting.
Brody was an interested spectator up here at Queensland Raceway for the XL300 last weekend. Just by the by,
leaning on the fence, was he having a watch?
He's having a long chat with, of all people, Roland Dane, watching the race. There's quite a few youngsters in the field who are racing as co-drivers this weekend in the big one at the 1000, who are co-driving.
Well, and even more retired Roland Dane, because he's not putting pen to paper anymore as well too. I noticed a couple of weeks ago. So,
he's going to come back. He's not going to do it on a weekly basis. He sort of said that he'll put up his hand. Yeah, I think it's a lot of work. I mean, we certainly know. You and I know damn well, Doc. I mean, how hard it is, especially when you do have slow news weeks, you've got to put some sort of content out, and you've got to work damn hard to come up with stuff. And I think Roland's in a position now where he can just he can pick and choose what he wants to do and when he wants to do it.
Oh,
so
he's short of a penny old Roland, isn't he? I'd imagine. Exactly. However, that's great. It's good to see that he still gets out to the track, though, Mark, and Brody and Roland as well, though, too, and gets out and just as
well, he does have a
sports.
Yeah, he does have an interest in the racing together Hyundai XL Team, the Indigenous initiative in the XL Cup up here. So yeah, there's Dick Johnson Racing also have an interest in that team actually. Both Triple Eight and DJR have supplied co-drivers to the Racing Together team over the last few years actually.
Just going all the way to your... Sorry, Mark, keep going.
No, go.
Just reminded me that what Brett just said a couple of minutes ago about supplying and stuff like that. The engine builders would have been putting in the burning the midnight candle the last week because, as we alluded to, the crankshafts that were coming over by plane, sitting on people's laps from the UK and the US. Literally almost on their laps, probably wrapped up in their favourite jumper or wind cheater, as we call them here in Australia. And not only that, they were having 10 old engines that they were old engines, but had been proven and had done some testing on to crack testing and stuff like that, just in case ready. So they were pulling out all stops to make these things as reliable as possible after the sand down. As I said, there was two reasons. One, there was the upgrades to the other parts of the engine and the mapping and all the stuff that's been done to the engine that's put the extra pressure on the crankshaft. But they also admitted that there were some quality issues with it as well too.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the first time that's happened. I mean, I remember years ago, even back in the Group C and Group A days, where you get sort of, like a sudden influx of, like conrod failures or something like that, and eventually they go, oh, hang on, we've never had it before, I wonder what's wrong, and then they've tested, some of the new ones and found that there's been a slight botch in, a minor fault in a batch somewhere, and that's all turned out.
So it's Hancock Prospecting's fault then.
Everything's
send them all to Australia.
Fault. Yeah, that's it. Just dump them onto us. So apart from the 1000 itself, I mean, we've got the Super 2s are running up there. We've got Carrera Cup, and we've also got we saw the Heritage cars today. What do we think of the Heritage cars? They look good running around. Is there and it's a good sized field. What do you think of those, Pete?
I love them. They were
cars.
It was like because they raced the more traditional lines, and I loved them. It was fantastic. And an Nissan Bluebird traditionally blew up a turbo, which was fantastic. As they
memories.
Did it cause the traditional cloud of thick white smoke and covering the entire circuit like a scene out of Days of Thunder?
Medical authorities warn the smoking is a health hazard.
Oh, that's another issue, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Apparently, Nissans and Mazdas had to be sticky taped in order that you couldn't read only one letter of the sponsor. Apparently, was enough.
I didn't watch it. Was it the first name of the thing start with Peter? Wasn't Stuyvesant? No.
Well, there was also something called Win, although I think it was the I.
Oh, yeah.
On a certain red, yellow, and white.
Great field of
and
cars.
the white in the other brand on the Mazda.
Yeah, it was a bit silly. It's very silly. We had this. We were very lucky. We had years ago. We had a show 31 stop. We covered some. We covered historic touring cars, of course, from Phillip Island, from the Phillip Island Historic, and it was a pre-recorded show, so it went into 31 early. And they got back to me and said, "I'm sorry, we can't show this show." And we sort of got at the time we got a legal. They got a legal judgment on it, which basically said, or a legal opinion, which said that, as the cars were, reflective of the time and they were in that, it was incidental and it was okay. A similar show to ours over in Perth, and when Perth had a Channel 31, not only did the show went to air, but not only did they get knocked off, Channel 31 Perth copped a huge fine and had their licence suspended for about a month for showing illegal cigarette advertising because they covered an historic meeting. So I think they've just got to.
Well, Channel 7. Remember a little while ago that Jack obviously Perkins was doing that sort of retrospective show on Channel 7 Classics or whatever it was. It was sort of a bit of a lead up to some of the things. So I think it was like he did about
them out.
Yeah, that's what they did to there. You could still obviously make it out if you were familiar with the advertising and back in its day, but they just blurred them.
But the problem with blurring stuff, I mean, especially with race cars, is it takes an awful lot of time. Even with the tracking you've got now, I mean, I've got the software that will do that. But if I'd have had to do it, it would have taken me probably sort of 30, 40 hours of meticulously going in and tracking through there to blur out those. And I just would have said, nah, forget about it, just run it instead.
And it even like. I've got a model of Peter Brock's A9 X Tirana, and all that cigarette sponsorship is removed.
Yes, you can, of course, go out and buy. If you go online, you can. I know lots of people who do it, and I probably do the same. If I don't really collect the model car, but if I got like a Brock Commodore or an A9X or something like that, I'd certainly be going online and getting the Marlboro. Because that's the car that raced. Same with Moffat's Mazda. I mean, it would have the Peter Stuyvesant thing on it, but it's ridiculous. So once again, I can't see anybody sitting there and suddenly going like, "Oh my God, Peter Stuyvesant! Oh, I must go out and start smoking."
I don't think.
We did see some fascinating results in the in the Heritage Touring Car, some interesting names. Like they actually had a race, of course, as we've alluded to. Yeah, and Ben Eggleston won the race today in a VR Holden Racing Team Commodore ahead of Tony Alford in the Tobacco Skyline GTR, and Greg Murphy, of all people, driving one of his. Oh, well, actually, not one of his old cars. I should say that because it was 51.
Yeah, it was Bob Pearson's.
It was a Bob Pearson VN, yeah.
Oh, right.
And James Brock finished top 6 in his old Future Tourer that he used to win a 300k race at Bathurst in 1999. I can't say that I've seen James Brock's name on a race car in less than a decade.
We hear about it every year. Just before you do, that Kmart Commodore, does anyone know where that is? Who's got it, I wonder?
Oh, it is around.
I believe it was restored. It's been purchased and it's been restored to 2003.
I'm not even 100% sure that Zach Brown mightn't even have it. Because he's got a couple of supercars in his collection. He's got quite a few significant Australian cars. He's also got the ex Alan Jones Formula 5000 and of course the ex Alan Jones Williams as well. But he's got the ex Teddy Yip car that Alan Jones ran in Formula 5000 all those years ago. So he's got a few toys. And once again, he's another potential to have bought that car off of Dick Johnson in America as well, because
anyway, sorry, Mark. Wanted to see if anyone knew. And keep going, about the 4th place, I think.
Oh, I was going to mention John Bow was running in the race in an ex-STP Roadways Commodore that would have been driven by Alan Grice and Steve Harrington back in the day. He came home in 15th, right in amongst a lot of the quicker Group C. In fact, he was the second Group C car home
Did
going
that
by. Yeah, the second Group C.
was that a Chickadee Commodore at some stage?
No. That was that car. We've done a story on that. That's a regular. It's based again in Tasmania. Originally came from Tasmania, and it's been a regular the last couple of years. We've done the Baskerville Historics. It's been featured there, and I think that deal for Bowie to drive must have come together pretty last minute sort of thing, because as far as I know, John was going up to do basically promotional stuff up at Mount Panorama, but it's good to see him behind the wheel again, and hopefully he's going to be driving at either Sandown Historic or back down at Baskerville again. I got to chat with John to just find out whether he is or not, because I'd like to.
Quick question for Eddie. Going back to Bathurst, Brett and I were talking about the other night, and obviously you are probably the most renowned race car driver on the screen right now. And congratulations.
Oh, that's cruel. That's Richard, don't nothing personal, Richard.
Come on.
That's all right. Richard can start getting some tips in a minute on how to set up his car before he heads to America. Yeah. Eddie, your memories of what era excited you when you actually did start? I mean, you may have only just late bloomer. You said you didn't start obviously jumping in a car until 10 onwards, really, and that sort of stuff in karts. But did you watch the race when you were younger, and what stood out for you?
I was pretty big with Formula One. I didn't really have much interest in supercars, but yeah,
well done,
the earliest race I can remember is 14 when Chaz won.
Oh, yeah,
2014.
yeah.
So
what a race!
I was 9 years old or something. I thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, how can you not fall in love with the sport after watching that for your first 1,000? So.
There's been some really close ones in the last 10 years, hasn't there? The margins first to second, and it's not just been, there's been strategies come into play where they're low on fuel and they have to just limp around, or, safety cars got involved and bunched them up. There's just been some really great finishes due to just circumstance happening. 161 laps usually. The Peterborough
takes a while to get there.
It does. I mean, it throws up. I mean, obviously, there's people sort of my generation and Richard's generation where we miss the good old days of when you had 50, 60 cars running around with a whole bunch of different categories, and you had race within race within race. But obviously, those days are well and truly over now. Pete?
And that was one of the beauties of the race with the heritage cars today, is that on the last lap, they were having to go past slower cars, which was great.
That's a little thing. So we were going through. If anyone watched the show last night and then watch it on YouTube now or further down the track, I think probably the two biggest little factors that are going to be different this year, and I brought them up on the show, was with the fuel restrictors, you'll have more time to make a coffee on pit stops if your favourite drivers are going through pit lane now, because they're slowing down the fuel rate that you can do it. And obviously the big announcement today was fuel churns are back next year. And I did see someone taking the piss out of that, because they said, well, not only is fuel churns back next year, I think they're going to bring back the 5-star wheels and wheel braces.
Larry will be happy. Larry will be thrilled about if they bring back 5. He never liked the idea of the central locking up.
It's the rattle guns, because remember I was catching up with Larry and Jack a couple of years ago, and Larry came back in the pits, and of course what happens to metal when it gets hot? It expands, and so Larry hates rattle guns. So Larry was still helmeted up, still in the car, hadn't bothered getting out yet. He takes his time when he gets in the car and sits there for 3 hours before a half an hour race. And
he's probably like me. He can't get out of the bloody thing.
And he takes an hour to get out of the car, even after that half-hour race. So he spends about 5 hours in the car, and he only races for about half an hour. Anyway, one day there, he's got, Jack, hurry up, get like that. So Jack's got the big, the torque wrench, the long handle one, the one you put your water pipe hole onto, and onto the single nut onto the wheel. And Jack's, I'm trying, I can't get the bloody thing off. And Larry's going, put something into it, would you? And he looks at me, and I look at him. This is Larry I'm talking about, not Jack. And I sort of nod, and he goes, yep, get on there with him. So here's Jack and I, arms around each other, on each other's shoulder, bouncing up and down on a bloody torque wrench, just trying to get a damn wheel off the car. And And then we finally go, thanks for that, mate. So it just, the wheel nut expands. However,
Sure, they weren't left-hand threads.
we were probably on the wrong side. Yeah, we probably hardened it up. Anyway, that wheel never came off. It was one of the ones. He was restored, so it doesn't have to come off ever again. However, yeah. So it's just I think the fuel restrictor, and it'll be slower pit stops because it's going to take longer to fuel. And the other one is I said to Brett, and we were chatting before the show, and it's going to make they're going to add the Dunlop are adding the hard tyres back in again, which means that drivers, when they go out there, are going to go absolutely I don't know what their bank of tyres is going to be going into the race. I'm sure they'll have 4 or 5 sets or whatever it is with their 2 new wet sets that they're allowed to have to. But they're going to go harder than what they did last year, where they just sort of edged around, which might, if they get pushed a little bit harder and they push each other, there might be a few concrete walls that get kissed.
Well, that's pretty much typical of Bathurst. So that's coming up this weekend. It's going to be good. Also, as we mentioned on the show on Tuesday and Wednesday night on In Pit Lane. Speaking of the United States, and you'll be able to watch it live on the YouTube on the IMSA YouTube channel, is Petit Le Mans. Coming up this weekend, and that's going to be a huge race as well. It's a real shame in a way that it always is run on pretty much nowadays. It's always run on the same weekend as Bathurst, which is quite a shame, because we have had in the past people like Chaz Mostert and others going across there and running in the race. So that obviously won't be happening. Won't be happening this year. But
Kevin Estre was supposed to be coming back to Bathurst this year after having driven for the Groves, Sandown and Bathurst last year, but the clash with Sandown meant he wasn't able to make it this year. So
we better also ask Richard how the Richard Outram Scholarship Program Cup went a couple of weeks ago before we forget. How'd that go?
Yes,
buddy?
you had an eventful weekend, I believe, Richard.
A checkered weekend. I did my Speedway oval debut at Calder. It got the car up to 160 odd K going around the Thunderdome, which is a big mistake. The Thunderdome is so rough. I call it the dentist's delight. The car literally comes airborne in a couple of places. And then things went south from there and race 2.
What, you went to the bottom of the Thunderdome and raced around the bottom of it rather than halfway up?
Top, bottom, it doesn't matter. You're there dodging the blue-tongued lizards anyway.
Yes,
it's had a bit of
blue tongues, just like in Bathurst.
So you come back with the feeling
in Singapore.
A bit of an incident at Turn 2 at barely, because I can tell you it's rough. It is so rough.
Did you rub any of your tobacco sponsorship livery on the side of yours off?
I have stuff which peels off, and the faster you go.
Racing tape.
Yeah.
So how long do you think it'll take? What is the damage? I mean, since I spoke to you last, you said it was considerable.
It should be. Yeah. Car number 2 took quite a hit. Sandwiched between 2 other cars. My arm still hurt nearly 2 weeks later.
Car number 2, you had your
stopped pretty quickly.
There's
the white one and the blue one. I took the white one.
Right.
And it's now somewhat shorter than it was. Both ends, virtually at the same time. Folded the radiator over the motor.
Oh,
so can barely push the clutch because the thermofan's jamming the clutch.
So it's a spare parts car there.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, it is a problem knowing what you look like. Well, that's for sure.
Yes, I did. But I saw Paul.
I'm not sure. Calder should be turned into a Roval. I said that to Bob years ago because, of course, the Dome is based on Charlotte. It's scaled down a bit, but the plans are literally from Charlotte. Well, of course, they're racing at Charlotte on the Roval this weekend. Shane Van Gisbergen running in both the Xfinity and the Sprint Cup this weekend, so he's got two opportunities to shine this weekend. But there's no reason why they couldn't, and that would solve the other problem if they turned. It still costs them a lot of money, but if they use the infield of the and the flatter parts of the Dome as a Roval and had a road course in there, then that would free up the drag strip, because the problem is at the moment they could run drag meetings there and get 15, 20 to 25,000 people through the gate. But they've got this obsession with, no, we've got to keep the circuit going, and while ever they've got the circuit going, there's going to be no drag racing.
We've got a Formula Ford champions with us tonight. So, Eddie Beswick, you are doing 7 races over there at the different tracks. You've probably looked at the calendar, otherwise you wouldn't know you got 7. What's the last? Have you looked at what your last race will be, at what location?
It's going to be at Portland, so where Shane won his first Xfinity race. That's going to be the season finale.
Yeah.
You'll get some Aussie support there
Sure,
if they know who SVG is now. And are you going to stay over there in New York as the plans to do it, or are you going to come home and spend some time with family and friends for the rest of the year and then sort of head back if all goes well to plan?
Look, because it ends so early in August, it does free up time to come back home. So that'll probably be the plan. And being on the West Coast, it is, a few hours short of the flight. So, yeah, the idea is finish off the season, come back home. That's what I like to think at the moment. But if motorsport's the main priority, if I need to do pre-season testing early on before the tracks snow over, then I'll have to do that.
If you're going to come back, would there be a chance that you might jump in a seat here for the odd race or two if it happens to be in New South Wales even?
Oh, look, I don't know. If I get something for free, I guess you may as well. But I can see myself going to a
Richard may be looking for a co-driver in the XL.
you can relaunch
the Winton Enduro.
The
Winton Enduro, yep.
Well, we've still got to get John. We've still got to get John Hindhoff into your car, Richard. I mean, I've flagged that with him. So Hindy's got to get over here and do the race, do a race with you. But anyway, hey, listen. Before we go, we're just about out of time, so let's figure this out. Let's go around the panel, get our tips for the great race this weekend. Doc, quickly, your tip.
I'll just stick to what I said on Tuesday night. I can't change it just because I'm on YouTube tonight instead. I'm still going for, like I said to you, a Cooper and Lowndes. First and last name there, I know, for a top 10 finish. That's if the kid can keep it off the concrete. That'd be fantastic. He seems consistent.
He did very well. He did very well today. He was the fastest of the two drivers today in that second session. He was quicker than Craig was, but it's so bizarre having a look at Craig and them talking about sort of the elder statesman of touring of supercar
Australian
racing.
motorsport.
Yeah, and I was looking back at some old footage of us doing an interview with him at Sandown, and it's like I looked at him and it's like he was like about not much older than Eddie is now. So
now it's salt and pepper up top like the rest of us. Yeah, and I didn't really give you a straight answer on the show this week, but Matt Payne punching above the Grove Racing have just been ticking along all year. He looked fast today as well, though, too, in practice, but no, nothing out of the ordinary. Super fast. It's hard to beat a Triple Eight when they're going out there having a bit of fun, even for a bit of fun. But I did say Brownie, he could be Mr. Consistent. But if I'm going to have my dark horse, it's going to be a Matt Payne, I think. Yeah.
Eddie, what do you think? Who's your tip for the weekend?
Oh, yeah, look, it's going to be hard to beat Triple Eight, but, I'm mates with Cammy McLeod, so hopefully the Slade McLeod car will win it.
Pete, what about you?
I actually think David Reynolds and Warren Luff.
Yeah, Warren, you'd love to see Luffy get up and have a win. That would be good. And, of course, Dave as well. I mean, But yeah, it would be good to see them, Mark.
Well, see, I was on the 87 bandwagon, but unfortunately the car's got a bit bent today, and sometimes you don't get that momentum back, although I was there at the mountain, and in fact, when Jason Bright crashed at the top of the mountain in 1998, in fact, that was kind of right in front of me at the time. And of course, my bloody camera was pointing down and not at the track.
Always the way.
Yeah, film cameras, had to reload.
We'll explain that to you later, Eddie.
Yeah. Although Kodak Polaroids have gone retro lately. He might know what we're talking about.
So I'm now kind of I'm kind of torn between the 88 and the 25. So I'm either Chaz Mostert or Brock Feeney.
Richard?
I'm still sticking with the bookies, and the favourite, I'll go with Will Brown. Yeah, even though the car's a little bit wonky, I reckon it'll be a late night, but I reckon
just
it'll
the one
be
late
straight
night.
by morning.
I'd just like to congratulate everyone for not smoking while we're on air tonight, because Brett brought it up a bit earlier. And also for Brett, I haven't seen his arm reach out to the side too often, because he did say there was champagne off camera. So your prediction, Brett, it's usually up to me to throw it to you with a big smile on your face, cheesy grin.
I'm going for Will Brown and Jamie Whincup. I think
Jamie's in Jamie Whincup is in Feeney's
car.
car.
With Feeney, sorry, Brock Feeney and Brock Feeney and Jamie
Will Brown and Scott Pye.
Will Brown and Scott Pye. No, I think that with the experience of Whincup, and he will help a lot in that situation. And I think they were obviously very competitive at Sandown as well. So I think Feeney and Whincup will take it out.
Well, if anyone's going to know the parts budgets, it's Jamie, because he knows what he's running the group.
And just on that, often if you have bad luck earlier in the weekend, you often have good luck in the race.
Well, that's the point. There have been issues in the past where they've actually found like big problems. I know at Le Mans, I forget the actual team, but many years ago there was a car that was fairly badly damaged on the Wednesday practice, and when they were putting it back together, they said, "Oh, we'll fix this." And when they were putting the engine back in, they went, "Whoa, hang on a second! Someone saw something." Went, "Whoa, hang on! That doesn't look right." And they actually found the start of a very small crack in the block, and they went, "Oh my God, that's." We wouldn't have lasted, so they changed the engine as well, and I don't think they won, but they finished the race. But,
I'm pretty sure that wasn't Mark Webber's number 4 Mercedes CLR.
No, well, that was it. Okay, everybody, that's all the time we have for this week. Eddie, thanks a lot for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Congratulations on a top year.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get the opportunity to catch up with you in one way or another in the United States. Unfortunately, the time zones are not exactly conducive.
14 hours difference usually.
Yeah, but good luck with it, and keep us up to. I hope you'll keep us updated. We'll follow your career in the United States very keenly, and who knows? Hopefully, I get across to see you. I'll catch up with you at Watkins Glen or something, and we're gonna have a Budweiser after you finish racing, of course. Everyone, thanks for joining us. Now, remember, this coming up this Tuesday on In Pit Lane, on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at the Australian Hill Climb Championship. It's just around the corner at Bryant Park here in Victoria, down in the Gippsland area. We're going to be joined by representatives of the Gippsland Car Club. They're going to tell us all about some of the great cars that are coming out and the big weekend. Good news is, if you're interested in going out, it's free of charge. Speaking of going out, if you want a break from Bathurst for any reason at all, and you're down here in Melbourne, The Calder Park drag racing, which was supposed to be on last weekend, because of the rain, was cancelled. It has been postponed to this Saturday. And in fact, it's a twilight meeting. Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock, we've got drag racing and roll racing. I'll be out there on commentary. Really love you to come on out there. And don't worry, I'll keep you up to date with all that's happening at Bathurst as well. Also on In Pit Lane next Tuesday night, once again, live music. We had an amazing live band in last week. Got another one this week. They're called Fire Roots, and you're going to love them. That's next week, 9 o'clock Tuesday, live on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, and then right across Melbourne and Geelong on Channel 31 Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. So until we see you, have a great Bathurst weekend, everybody. Happy Bathurst. We'll see you next week. Until then, bye for now, everyone.
Drown your sorrows at Oktoberfest.